Modern people believe they have outgrown superstition. We laugh at ancient fears of demons, spirits, and possession. We assume humanity has evolved beyond such primitive beliefs. But according to the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, this confidence may itself be an illusion, for the forces our ancestors called demons never truly disappeared. They merely changed form. What ancient people once experienced as spirits haunting forests, rivers, mountains, and dark places, modern man now experiences as unconscious psychological forces moving silently within the human mind. For modern civilization did not destroy the darkness. It internalized it, and perhaps this explains why modern societies, despite all their science, rationality, and technological progress, remain capable of terrifying outbreaks of cruelty, mass hysteria, ideological fanaticism, and unimaginable evil. Because the demons are still here. Only now, they live inside us. For most of human history, people experienced the world as alive. Forests were not merely forests. Rivers were not merely water. Storms were not simply weather. Everything possessed intention, emotion, and spiritual force. Ancient humanity believed invisible powers moved constantly through nature. Some were protective, others were destructive. And among the most feared of these forces were demons. To modern people, this worldview appears irrational, but Carl Jung believed ancient man was not simply ignorant, he was psychologically different. Early humanity lived in a state Jung associated with what anthropologists called participation mystique, a condition where the boundary between the inner mind and the outer world remained blurred. Primitive man did not sharply distinguish between psychological experience and objective reality. Inner emotions, fears, desires, impulses, and unconscious forces were projected outward onto nature itself. The human psyche became woven into the environment, and so nature appeared haunted, enchanted, divine, and terrifying. The external world became a mirror of the unconscious mind. According to Jung, the human psyche contains opposing forces: creation and destruction, love and hatred, compassion and cruelty, light and darkness. Primitive humanity unconsciously projected both the positive and negative dimensions of the psyche onto nature. Benevolent psychological energies became gods, guardian spirits, angels, and divine protectors. But darker unconscious forces became demons, monsters, curses, and evil spirits. The terrifying entities feared by ancient civilizations were not entirely imaginary. They were symbolic expressions of the darker side of the human psyche. Humanity externalized its unconscious, and because these projections appeared external, they were treated seriously. Rituals emerged to contain destructive forces. Religions developed systems to resist corruption and evil. Ancient societies understood something modern civilization often forgets. Human beings contain enormous destructive potential, and if this darkness is ignored, it eventually escapes control. As human consciousness evolved, the relationship between humanity and the external world began to change. People gradually separated themselves from nature. The inner world and outer world became distinct. Science replaced mythology, rationality replaced mysticism, and the modern individual increasingly viewed nature as lifeless matter rather than a spiritually animated reality. Humanity withdrew its projections from the external world. The forests no longer contained spirits. The rivers no longer housed gods. The mountains no longer concealed demons. Nature became psychologically empty, but Jung warned that something extremely dangerous happened in this process. Human beings did not eliminate the unconscious forces once projected onto nature. They merely pushed them inward. The demons moved into the human psyche itself, and once hidden within the unconscious mind, these forces became even more dangerous because modern people stopped recognizing their existence altogether. Jung believed modern people are still vulnerable to possession. Only now, possession rarely appears in supernatural form. It appears psychologically. A person becomes consumed by hatred. Another becomes obsessed with power. Others surrender themselves completely to ideology, violence, greed, fanaticism, or collective rage. And because modern civilization no longer believes in demons, it fails to recognize possession when it happens. The possessed person usually believes himself rational, moral, enlightened, even heroic. This is what makes modern psychological possession so dangerous. The individual no longer experiences destructive impulses as foreign intrusions. He identifies with them completely. The unconscious takes control while the ego remains convinced it is acting freely. And nowhere is this more visible than among those who hold immense political and social power. For power easily produces psychological inflation, a condition where individuals begin to see themselves as superior beings standing above ordinary humanity. They lose humility, they lose self-awareness, they begin to believe they embody absolute truth. And once this inflation reaches extreme levels, the unconscious retaliates. Dark psychological forces emerge with terrifying intensity. Cruelty becomes righteousness. Violence becomes necessity. Destruction becomes salvation. And history repeatedly shows what happens when human beings possessed by unconscious darkness gain enough power to reshape entire societies. According to Jung, one of the greatest dangers facing modern civilization is collective projection. When individuals refuse to confront the darkness within themselves, they unconsciously project it onto other people. Enemies are created, scapegoats emerge, entire groups become viewed as evil. Foreigners, political opponents, religious rivals, ethnic minorities, anyone onto whom society can unload its unconscious fear and hatred. Once this projection occurs, cruelty becomes psychologically justified. People convince themselves they are fighting evil, when in reality, they are spreading it. History is filled with examples of collective possession, mass hysteria, political fanaticism, genocide, war, revolutionary violence. And what makes these events so terrifying is that the people participating in them often believe themselves morally righteous. They rarely see themselves as servants of destruction. They see themselves as heroes. This is why Jung believed the modern world remained deeply vulnerable to unconscious evil. Because technological advancement does not eliminate psychological darkness. In fact, it often magnifies its destructive potential. Modern humanity possesses more power than any civilization in history. But without self-awareness, that power becomes extraordinarily dangerous. Perhaps the greatest illusion of modern civilization is the belief that humanity has become fully rational. For beneath science, technology, politics, and progress, the ancient psyche still lives. The same unconscious forces that once appeared to humanity as gods, spirits, and demons continue to move silently within the human mind. Only now, we no longer recognize them, and because we deny their existence, we become even more vulnerable to their influence. Carl Jung believed true psychological maturity requires confronting the darkness within ourselves rather than projecting it onto the world. Because evil ignored does not disappear, it grows. The demons modern humanity fears most are not hiding in forests or mountains. They are hidden within the unconscious mind, within hatred, within fanaticism, within ideological possession, within the terrifying human capacity for self-deception. And perhaps the most dangerous person is not the one who believes in demons, but the one who believes himself completely free of darkness.